What's up, Bills Mafia? Ryan Thomas here for another episode of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I am joined by a very special guest, a man that I've wanted to have on the show for quite some time, Buffalo Fanatics' very own Joe Miller. I've been told that this is a guest that the audience has demanded as well.
Demanded.
Due to the fact that Joe has a very distinguished voice, and I'm told that I do as well. So this will be one that the audio audience on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts should enjoy. So, Joe, thank you for gracing me with your presence tonight. Thank you for hopping on. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. It's good to be here. It's really cool to be here. So yeah, it's always an honor to be invited into somebody else's house. So yeah, so I know you invited me, or we kind of had a conversation a couple months ago, but it never materialized, and all the craziness that was this 2020 season for the Buffalo Bills. So it's just good to be here. So yeah, appreciate it.
Right. Thank you. So, folks, this is the Buffalo Bills off-season primer. We're here, inching closer and closer to free agency. I know that the Twitter sphere is kind of flooded with news on a player that is one of the most popular players in the National Football League that is a free agent. I want to hit you with the big storyline right out of the gate. J.J. Watt, he asks for his release from the Houston Texans. He's granted his release. Joe, do you see J.J. Watt as a legitimate fit in Buffalo? And if you want to play devil's advocate, feel free. I think this is such a hot topic right now in Buffalo sports as to whether or not the Bills should or shouldn't go after him.
Well, I mean, there's two sides to the coin, right? And if I'm going to be honest, I was the guy pounding the table at the trade deadline for the Bills to go get him. And the reason that I wanted the Bills to go get him was just because, and I've been saying it all season, we need a havoc wreaker on that defensive line. We need a guy that's going to create disruption. Jay Spence said it on his show on the Code of Conduct yesterday, and he said it in probably better words than I have in the past. But the things I've said, I agree with, because like what's coming up or what has been coming up is like Jerry, and we all love Jerry, and Jerry had more pressures. Jerry had more quarterback pressures than JJ did. Well, can we define the word pressure? Because getting within 2 feet of the quarterback and not really disrupting him, maybe on paper, is a pressure, but to me, that's not getting him off his spot. That's not moving him into a position where he's getting rid of the ball faster than he wants to. So I literally all season, or at least until the trade deadline, was on the J.J. Watt bandwagon. Yes, there have been some injury issues. Yes, he's 32. He's getting older. Yes, his body has taken a beating. But for me, this is a guy I want. So I put him on my defensive line opposite Jerry Hughes with Ed Oliver and Star Latulele, and let's go, right? I mean, to me, and that's the kind of fire this guy brings. He's got a motor that doesn't quit. You're talking about the defensive line on the Buffalo Bills that, rotates, and they average 40 to 50% of the snaps. JJ played 90% of the snaps in 2020. 90%. So now give me JJ at maybe 80% of the snaps or 70% of the snaps if they're going to keep rotating guys. You can't tell me that he's not going to be a havoc wreaker on this defensive line, which is going to do so much more for Tremaine Edmonds. It's going to do so much more for Milano if Milano comes back. It's going to do so much more for Poyer and Hyde, for Tre'Davious White. I mean, and yes, I can have the argument on the other side if you want me to, but I'm on the J.J. Watt train, and that's just me.
I love it, because this was something that it was obvious that the Texans are heading in a very odd direction. We don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson. And for Watt to say, hey, I want to be cut, and Houston says, okay, we're going to grant you release. The first thought that hops into our minds as Buffalo Bills fans is it's very rare to even have a player, albeit at 32, of J.J. Watt's caliber as a free agent, and it's a need for this Buffalo Bills team. To your point, we generated a lot of pressures, but we didn't actually get to the quarterback nearly enough in 2020. And what ways can we improve this team? What way can we kind of close that gap between us and the Kansas City Chiefs? I know the Chiefs wouldn't want to face J.J. Watt in another, in an AFC championship game. Yep. So I'm right there with you. Do you think, percentage-wise, 1% being unlikely and 100% being likely, how likely do you see this actually happening for the Buffalo Bills? There are a lot of reports out there right now that they're both viewing this as a potential fit for both sides.
Yeah, percentages are funny things. You never know what's in the man's heart, right? So the dude's from Wisconsin. The Packers, clearly, if I'm not mistaken, are another team that's in the mix. The Bills are what, a top 3 football team in the NFL? I mean, so
I would say so.
I mean, it's not something that necessarily we as Bills Mafia believe. It's like kind of the truth. So the funny thing about the situation is, and I've said it all season long as well, that we're living in wildest dreams land, and we're living in wildest dreams land, even in this sense that like, this is a place where a guy that wants to win a Super Bowl, he came out in his pressers 1 or 2 times this year and just said, I just want to win. Well, we won 15 games this year, JJ. How many did you win? So, I mean, and there's not many teams that won more games than we did. So, I mean, for all intents and purposes, I think the probability is good. I think he understands what this offense brings, our offense. I think he understands the potential. Look back to when Quentin Jefferson and Mario Addison joined this team, the excitement that they had coming in and just the talent that was around them. And they understood what the goal was, and they understood what the potential was even before we did. Because before the season started, we were like, well, we got to make the playoffs. We're going to win the East. Like, that's a goal. We got to win a playoff game. If that happens and Josh Allen takes a step, we're good. And those guys were all like, no, Super Bowl or bust. And we're like, well, let's slow down. Right. So you can't tell me for a second that JJ Watt isn't looking at this roster and looking at this team and looking at the quarterback. The quarterback matters to the defensive player, because he knows if the Bills are going to come out and average 32 points a game again in 2021, which is very likely, that dude's going to be pinning his ears back the whole game and just like putting it on the quarterback. They're not going to be playing from behind. I don't expect in 2021 a whole lot. So I think the probability is high. What percentage? I don't know. I wouldn't dare to guess, but I love hearing that we have interest and he has interest. Give me that all day long.
To me, the fact that we do have interest and that he has interest, to me, it shows that whether they get him or whether they don't get him, the silver lining is Brandon Beane is really going to try like heck to improve this team. And with this weird salary cap situation, there are, several quote unquote cap casualties as far as who is staying, who is going. I don't have the exact numbers. I don't study the Bills salary cap as closely as some of these other social media people do. And some of it, I'm like, how do you guys keep up with this stuff? To their credit, I give them a ton of credit for that. I'm just not a numbers guy really in that regard. Right. I like to make money, spend it. That's just how I am. But Mario Addison would be the first one. And this is a staying or going, segment. These are players that if the Bills decide to cut them, they do get, multi-millions back into the salary cap, or millions back into the salary cap, I should say. Do you see Mario Addison staying or going, and why?
Mario Addison is the interesting one of the ones that I would keep, because to me, and I don't know that I have a short answer, one of the greatest, I don't even know, one of the greatest misconceptions for Brandon Beane this offseason was somehow that Mario Addison, Vernon Butler, and Quentin Jefferson were going to replace Shaq Lawson and Jordan Phillips. It didn't work. Of the three, the reality is Mario Addison was the best one of the three of those guys. And I'm sure that you're going to ask me about the other two. I don't, he's a guy that's iffy to me. I think the number 6, I think it's $6 million we save if we let him go. He's a guy for me that I could potentially keep around. The question is AJ Epinesa, right? And obviously Jerry Hughes. My guess is Jerry Hughes stays. I loved what I saw from Jerry. I want to see Jerry continue kind of growing as a leader in that locker room, which we've seen him do over the last couple of years, specifically this year. The crazy dumb penalties are down. Like crazy Jerry, we talk about sugar high Josh, sugar high Jerry hasn't been around for a couple of years, and I like it. So Mario is one of those guys that if I'm going to keep one of the three, it's him. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he has to be there. If you're bringing in JJ Watt and he's going to play 80% of the snaps, and it all comes back to that. It comes back to the luxury of D-line rotation that this team they've enjoyed. That those days are gone, in my opinion, with the salary cap going where it is. 40% of the snaps, 45% of the snaps per guy. Those days are over. Like, we're going to end up in like real world zone that every other team is in, where your guys play 80% of the time. So that's for me. So Mario, I can see him staying. I don't know that I have a real good answer for you. I don't want to see him go. So he was productive, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's what I want. Like, I want you to play, GM Brandon Beane. Who do you think should stay?
Stays.
Who do you think should go? Mario Addison. For you, he's staying. Okay, I like it. I do think that, in terms of what he brought to that Sean McDermott style 4-3,
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see him return, just in the sense that he's a vet, locker room guy,
Yep.
pretty positive influence on the younger guys, Epinesa and Oliver. This is one that I think is a very interesting topic, and it's one that I've had a lot of questions on myself, that I've hemmed and hawed over it, and that's John Brown. I
Yeah.
love John Brown. I think he's a solid player on this offense, but he wasn't really available for this team. He had a few bumps and bruises, a few injuries throughout the season. So, John Brown, do you believe he's staying under your GM? If you're playing Brandon Beane, is he staying for you or is he going for you?
John Brown's an interesting one too. You're giving me all the hard ones up front. John Brown, and it's funny because as much as availability is the best ability. He played through a lot of that injury. There was 2 or 3 passes that I can think of, those underneath wide receiver screens, that he'd have scored on if he was completely healthy. Like he'd have gone, and you could see that he was not as fast as he normally was. I'd love to see a world where they can figure out a way to restructure John Brown, maybe extend him out another year or 2. The hard part and what we don't know is what's on the bench, right? Because we got a wide receiver that we drafted last year that we have not seen yet. So we don't have the information that they've got in regards to Isaiah Hodgins and what he brings. I predicted at the beginning of the season, not that Gabe Davis would be better. Gabriel Davis would be better than John Brown. I just had predicted with Jay Spence that Gabe Davis would be the number 2 guy in numbers. Like he would be our second wideout, not including Cole Beasley. It worked out because of injury. I would love to restructure John Brown. He's a process guy. He's a kid that wants to be here. Josh loves him, but man, these are tough questions, dude. I'm glad I'm not the GM. I'm probably keeping all, these are my friends. I'm keeping all these guys. Right. So
we're proving the point though. And in the long run, in the questions,
give me some layups, dude. Give me Vernon Butler. Gone.
Yeah, Vernon Butler. See, I didn't ask you Vernon Butler because I know that Vernon Butler's probably gone. Right. So this is one that I think is an easy one for me. I'll go out, and say that, John Brown, I want the Bills, to what you said, a great point. I would love it if the Bills were able to restructure his contract. Yeah. If they, part ways for a little bit and then say, hey, if you take a little bit less, we'll bring it back. What better team for John Brown to play on than this one? Right. And it's a very tough sell for John Brown to go to another team at this point. I think it'd have to be a perfect fit. But
the question is, does he return to being just a deep guy? Or John Brown comes to Buffalo and surprises everybody because he can run a full route tree, right? So I don't know that he goes to another team and they're like, yeah, we want you to be our 1A. We want you to be our X receiver. I just don't. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know what that answer.
If I was John Brown's agent, I would say we might want to take less to stay here. Just that, and that's the power of this team right now. That is the shift. I mean, could we say that 4 or 5 years ago about the Buffalo Bills? Let's be honest. So no. The next one that I have is Trent Murphy, staying or going. Gone.
Gonzo. That's not even a conversation. Yeah. His bags were packed at about week 8. Gone.
So according to yourself, hashtag all the feels.
Yeah, that's how on a break I've been. I haven't even updated any of this stuff. I'll fix that right now.
No, I'll fix it. I got you. Covered.
I'm already in there, dude. I'm already in there. Joe Miller. What's my name? Joe Miller Wired. That's what
Joe Miller Wired. Okay,
there it is.
There you go. All right. So yeah, whether you want the Twitter, I just keep my name. I like the first and last. But so in terms of this offseason, okay, there's a lot of discussion about Vernon Butler, Trent Murphy, Mario Addison. There's a recurring theme here, and it's that the Buffalo Bills, and whether or not they go after J.J. Watt, I think one of the biggest needs for this team is a true improvement in the pass rush department and their defense.
Yep. What
were your thoughts this season? I was very disappointed in the lack of production from one AJ Epinesa. As well, Ed Oliver hasn't really jumped out at me in these first couple seasons like I thought he would. Do you have any, concerns over that, or am I wrong to feel concerned over that, or what are your thoughts on the progression or lack thereof really from Epinesa and Oliver?
I'm not one to tell you that you're wrong. as far as that goes. I mean, I wouldn't say that you're right, but I would say that you're wrong. Ed Oliver is a second-year player. He's being asked to play a role on a defensive line that he's not meant to play, sucking up two offensive linemen. That's clearly Star Latulele's job. And I'm not one of the ones that's going to tell you that, like, the reason this defense underperformed is because Star opted out. Well, that's crap. You're talking about a guy that played 50% of the snaps or 48% of the snaps the year before. So if a guy that played 48% of your snaps caused you to be the number 3 defense, and when he opts out, you slide to 29 to start the season, then he's the greatest defensive player that's ever played football at 48% of the snaps. I'm just not buying that. But him being gone affected Oliver. Like, Oliver was on the wrong side as far, like, when you're talking about, the 2 defensive tackle positions. Oliver's a guy to me that, you get a guy like Star back, you get a guy like JJ back, and Oliver, he's never going to be Aaron Donald. And that's part of the problem that we as Bills fans have, is like, we were sold by some content creators a couple years back that he's like the next Aaron Donald. He's not Aaron Donald. And it's unfair to say that he would be. Can he be great? Yes. Will he be the Aaron Donald? No, there's only one Aaron Donald. As far as Epinesa goes, I wasn't too tied into last year's draft. It was clearly the middle of COVID. My job is one that, last year I was in the basement creating. I'm going to give myself an excuse that's valid but won't make sense. I was in the basement creating something that didn't exist, and it took me 2.5 months to do it, about 60 hours a week for work, to make sure that work kept going. And I was really disconnected. So, I heard the chatter about Epinesa as a first-round talent. We got him in the second round, blah, 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 and all this stuff. He played like a third rounder. He played like a kid that's got to develop. He played, I don't want to say he played like Aaron Maben, but he played, long, lanky guy, quick, speed, high motor, didn't really make a lot of noise, was close a couple times. I would say he had some pressures, if we want to define them that way. He's another one that we're going to see. So, how much benefit can he be, or how much benefit can he get from having a Watt taking 2 guys and having Latulele back taking 2 guys, Ed Oliver coming at you from the middle, single covered, and then he's out there on the other side spelling Jerry alone, right? I'm not putting any blame on those 2 guys for me. So I'm not going to say you're wrong. I just think that there's an aspect of, like, I just don't know that we know. If Star had been here this year, all things had been equal, we probably would know more than we know right now, right?
Right, I would say so, and it's too early to tell, for sure. Way too early to write them off. I don't want to do that,
right?
But just in terms of my expectations, I think might have been a little too high, and they definitely weren't met in terms of what, I thought Ed Oliver was a steal for the Buffalo Bills when they got him, where they got him, how they got him, and everything. I thought that was a steal. I thought Epinesa was a steal, given that he was a first-round grade in most draft digests and stuff. But I thought that, coming into their potential, obviously Oliver's second season and Epinesa's rookie season, I thought that they would be just a little bit better. And I'm hoping that this next season, maybe with the addition of a JJ Watt, or do they go into the draft this year and add another defensive end in the second round or third round? That's something that might happen, could happen, who's to say. But something else that is a big question, and it's a big debate among myself and some members of Bills Mafia, the Bills' run game in 2021, heading into 2021, looking back at 2020, what were your thoughts on Devin Singletary and Zach Moss? For as potent as this Buffalo Bills passing offense was, this rushing offense was abysmal. One of the worst probably in the National Football League. So what do you think needs to be done there in order to kind of bring that to a respectable level?
Yeah. So it's one of 3 things, right? It's either going to be your running back. So your running back is the problem. It's going to be your offensive line. Is your offensive line the problem? Or it's going to be your coach. Is the scheme the problem? And the best answer that I can give you, as I am not necessarily the greatest X's and O's guy in the world, there's a lot of guys out there that are better than me, is just basically give you the answer that John Fina gave me when I kind of pinned him down to the carpet. And I said, look, John, and I asked John a lot of difficult questions in my Off Tackle with John Fina show, questions that he doesn't necessarily always like. He never disparages anybody, and I don't ask him to disparage, but I ask him questions that me as a fan, I want to know the answers to. It's like, John, you played. Tell me the answer. Like, I want to know what before I keep freaking out about stuff I shouldn't be freaking out about. Tell me what the truth is. And so I asked him that question. I said, I don't want you to dodge it. I don't want you to duck it. Is it the offensive line? Is it the running back? Is it the scheme? and he hemmed and hawed a little bit. And he said, the running backs are great. He said, our offensive line is athletic. He said, it's the scheme. He said, if you want these two running backs to be productive behind that offensive line, the scheme has to change. So for me, if they're going to do something different, they're either going to have to change the scheme, or they're going to have to find a running back that it can play the scheme that they want to play. Because not to mention the fact that, the guys aren't super fast. It doesn't mean you can't win with them. Devin Singletary looked great in flashes in his rookie season. There were times when he didn't look slow. Some of the stretch plays that they had him running and some of the things that they had him doing, he looked slow. It's like he is not Raheem Mostert, who's going to get around the corner before anybody knows he's even got the football. Like for him, it's like, 5 steps, and like a half hour later, it's like, oh, he's coming around the corner. So, and by then the linebackers got him. So there's just an aspect of like, they've got to do something to fix it. A run game is going to help the Bills. The run game is going to help Josh Allen. It won't take yards. It won't take stats away from Josh Allen. It's just going to make it harder to defend Josh Allen if they've got a run game they can count on. Because then when he is using that, the play action was super solid for Josh Allen this year. And that was with a horrible running back or running game, not running back group, but a running game. The big question for me, and I'm talking a lot, Ryan, I'm sorry.
No, you're great. You're fantastic.
I just don't know that you can keep both those guys. I love Devin Singletary. I like Zach Moss. He didn't, in my opinion, make a whole lot of people make business decisions, but I like Zach Moss. I just don't know if they're going after an ETN guy or somebody like that, or not Najee Harris. I just don't know that both those guys are here, or if they are, they're not here much longer. One of them is, but I just don't know that both. I mean, to me, in the current scheme, the current offensive line, what they want to do, they're a change-up guy. They're not the guy, they're a change-up guy. So we've got 2 change-up guys. And that's not going to be popular with Bills Mafia hearing me say that, but I don't think it's a surprise. I think we expect more than we got, and we just didn't get it. And the last thing I would want to see is them going into 2021 and be like, we're going to try this again, because it ain't going to work, right? We know it's not going to work. So it's not, and the problem is not Mitch Morse. So
yes, I agree with that. Can we? You could have said that from the start, and I would have been like, yeah, that's
right.
But no, I definitely agree with everything you said. I loved the take there, and I think that in terms of Singletary and Moss, they didn't, at least in 2020, they didn't flow the way that I thought they would. They didn't complement one another the way I thought they would. Is that scheme, to John Fina's point? John Fina would know more than I would in that regard, especially as far as how an offensive line run blocks versus pass blocks. What blew my mind was the fact that this Buffalo Bills offensive line pass blocking was arguably the best in the National Football League this year.
Right.
But run blocking, my high school put together a better run blocking offensive line for former Tennessee Titan David Fluellen than the Bills did this year. And I'm obviously making jokes there, but at the same time, we saw a completely unbalanced offense. And if this offense became more balanced in 2021, that's the difference between a 38-24 loss to the Chiefs or beating the Chiefs. Potentially, right. And I think that from going to 2020 to 2021, I feel like the hierarchy of the AFC is the same. I feel like it won't change much. I know Miami's getting better. They're young. They're making moves, but I'm not sold on Tua. I'm not.
There it is.
I feel like Tua was a bust. Last draft season, I feel like he's maybe even more of a bust beyond his rookie season. I'm not sold on that. What do you believe? Do you believe that it's KC versus Buffalo these next few years, or do you think that every year's a new season and that the Bills do have some competition here in the AFC besides the Chiefs?
Well, you got to look at the Chargers. The best part about that is the fact that Herbert is in the same division as Pat Mahomes. So there's an aspect of hoping that those two guys battle it out much like Marino and Kelly did, and we'll see who comes out on top. No, I mean it's the Dolphins are coming up. Herbert's coming up. Obviously, as much as I'm not, I love the commercials. I'm not super sold on Baker Mayfield. You can't count him out. Like he came to life at the end of the season. It's definitely not the Chiefs and the Bills only for the next 10 years. Like there's a lot of great talent in the AFC. There's a lot of great quarterbacks in the AFC. So we'll see. But in my opinion, the Jets are toast. The Jets are the Jets. I'm not at this point a believer that somehow Belichick is going to find his way back to glory land with whoever he brings in this year, because it's not going to be Cam. The Dolphins, Tua is an interesting conversation. And I've broken this down to the East, but Tua is our backups. And the game, you could say the game was over by the time our backups really came in, but like he wasn't fooling nobody on this against this Buffalo Bills defense. So, we'll see what happens. I don't know. I wasn't convinced with his arm talent as far as what I saw in that football game or what I saw this year. He hits guys with some anticipation stuff, but he does not have the arm to put the ball in places that, Josh Allen's going to do it. Pat Mahomes is going to do it. Herbert's going to do it. Even Tom Brady's going to do. So it'll be interesting to see from a hierarchy standpoint where this league goes in the next couple of years. The Bills have a window, right? And the reality is the Bills have a big window right now because Josh Allen's contract is so small, and it's not going to remain that way. That kid's going to be making $40 million a year soon. So we'll see. But who knows what's going to happen with the cap as well? I mean, if it goes to 175 or 185 this year, where does it go next year? Like when the fans return. So we'll see about that. There's a lot of questions to be answered, but yeah, I think the Bills are going to be good. Enjoy it. I would tell everybody to enjoy it. Enjoy Bills Mafia. The Bills are going to be good for a while. So
yeah, I agree. And it was pretty awesome to see throughout this season, the team just completely take over, not just the AFC East, but the AFC is as one of those top two teams along with the Chiefs. I was just so over the moon with the fact that they not only extended Sean McDermott for 6 years, they extended Brandon Beane for 6 years.
Let's go.
knowing the leadership of the team and what they've accomplished thus far.
Yeah.
Joe, I remember my Buffalo Bills app, my phone vibrated, the hey, hey, hey ringtone. I looked down, I saw that the Bills traded Sammy Watkins and Ronald Darby. I thought, what the hell is going on? I really thought that, take me through that moment for you. Did you think, is this going in a direction?
I was sitting on the toilet. I was literally on the toilet scrolling. I remember right where I was scrolling Twitter, and I'm like, what? And I started texting buddies. I was like, "Can you screenshot and stuff?" And like I
couldn't believe it.
And what's funny about it is, I don't remember being. I remember being like, "Wait a minute, you're getting rid of like the two best guys, like the two best hopeful guys, like the two best like potential dudes that we have. Like you're sending them down the road." But I don't remember being like all is lost. I don't remember being it's over. Like, holy crap, we just got rid of Tom Brady. Like for me, it was like these are the two best potential chips we have, like to put something together. And the reality was if availability is the best ability, Sammy Watkins was never that. Like never that. Like he had one good year with Tyrod. Right. And he still isn't. He had one good year with Tyrod. That was it. Right. So and other than that, and Darby, it's been interesting to see. Hindsight is 2020. I don't think they made the wrong choice. Darby has floated around. He's become a journeyman cornerback. He gets beat a lot. Like, yeah, dude. Like it was. I remember literally sitting on the toilet, just being like, what, and screenshotting that and like sending it to people and be like, what is going on? Like, yeah. It's a weird moment for sure.
It wasn't in the sense that it was a bad move. It was in the sense that these guys got some brass ones to make these moves this early, and look at what it has materialized into. That was like the first domino, and now the team is a juggernaut, set to be a juggernaut in the AFC for quite some time. And I'm already looking forward to 2021. But man, JJ Watt is on my wish list. But if they get him, great. If not, I don't know if you've been checking out my Twitter, but I've been writing tweet letters to JJ Watt trying to get him to come here. I'm hoping, maybe he sees just one of them, or his chicken wing eating wife sees one of them. Something's got to give here. We got to bring him in. He can't go to Cleveland. Are you kidding me? Cleveland?
That would be weird.
Baker Mayfield's better than Josh Allen. Come on.
That would be weird playing against his brothers. That would be a little strange. That kind of goes against what everybody has been thinking, that he wants to play with his brothers, not play against them. But yeah, it would be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Colt Schroeder just said that Casey's on the decline.
Casey's on the decline. Well, that is a great point from Colt Schroeder, that Casey is on the decline. I want to definitely dive into this to end the show.
Sure.
The Super Bowl is the biggest game of the year, biggest entertainment venue, with or without fans. Millions of people watch. Ratings were a little down this year, but it was the most streamed game ever. What were your thoughts on what Tampa Bay did to the Kansas City Chiefs, what they were able to do is, I think, potentially, okay, to take words out of your mouth, potentially, they somewhat exposed the Kansas City Chiefs. What are your thoughts on that?
So, first of all, when you go to the playoffs, you're going to get, obviously you're playing the best teams in the league. There it is. You're playing the best teams in the league, and you're going to get, or you expect to get, the best game from them. Kansas City did not get, so I got to back up. Kansas City did not get the best game from us. Not to mention the fact, I don't want to say that the Bills read their press clippings, but what they did to Baltimore as far as shutting that offense completely down, I think they walked away. I think that ended up feeling to the Buffalo Bills in that locker room like that was their Super Bowl. Like, can you believe what we just did? Like, we shut them down completely. And they got in that game and they got their fannies whipped. They got out-coached. They got outplayed. I put a tweet out there as well that, do we want to have a conversation about, Leslie Frazier not being as good as, the dude that I just forgot his name, the defensive coordinator from the Buccaneers, because they played the quote unquote same game plan. And people got mad about that, which was funny, Todd Bowles, which is funny just because, 2 weeks earlier, everybody was like, we totally got outcoached. It's not the players, we got outcoached. And then Todd Bowles rolls out the same game plan where players are tackling, players are maybe a little bit better in spots. They got pressure, like where the Bills did not. But meanwhile, all of a sudden, coaching was no longer like the thing. It wasn't a coaching issue. It was now all of a sudden we have sucky players. And I don't know that that's necessarily the truth. So for me, that game, that Super Bowl came down to a couple things. I don't think the Kansas City got the Bills' best game. I don't think the Bucs got Kansas City's best game. And I think that was partially due to some stuff in it, whether it was the game plans against them or the fact that the refs were very involved in that Super Bowl. Like, that Buffalo Bills Kansas City game, in my opinion, goes completely different if they're calling the stuff that they called in that Super Bowl, because they did not. It was not. And they did it against the Ravens too. It was Marlon Humphrey was running down the field with his hand in the neck, like in the shirt, under the shoulder pads of, I think it was Stephon Diggs, running down the field with him. And that's called illegal contact. Like, you're not allowed to do that. I mean, borderline defensive holding, but like, they were not throwing flags. So were they exposed? No, every quarterback has a problem with pressure. Every quarterback, for the most part, Josh Allen, name them, Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, if they get off their spot, they don't necessarily like to be rushed. However, some quarterbacks are good at it. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. The problem was they really chased him around and guys couldn't get open. So that whatever the zone defense was, the soft zone that they were playing and the bracket coverages they were playing worked, whereas it didn't for the Bills. I don't know why. I don't have an answer to why. At the end of the day, for me, it comes down to getting me a havoc wreaker, which is what we started with the show. Get me a dude that Pat Mahomes is going to be afraid to line. There was nobody on our defensive line this year where the offensive coordinator's like, we got to stop that guy. If we can stop that guy, it wasn't even like it was like, we'll just play some football, right? I mean, we'll just play some football. Meanwhile, you've got guys on the Tampa Bay defense that they had to account for, and it starts on the defensive line, and that is what allowed Barrett to do the stuff that he was doing in that football game, because the line was getting in to where they needed to be, which allowed him to kind of run around and chase. So it's a combination of things. I don't think the gap is as far or as wide as we think it is right now between the Bills and the Chiefs. I also don't know that I believe that the Bucs are as good as they are. So, it just kind of is what it is. I think the game just set up well for the Bucs. You're playing a Super Bowl in your home stadium. Home field, as much as Bills Mafia doesn't want to talk about it, and this is total sidebar. It's been sub 20 degrees in Buffalo for the last month? Is that right? Like, it's been like 15,
month plus.
Right. Yeah. Coming into the playoffs, it was like, we need a dome. Josh Allen can't play in the cold, and it's like, first of all, Josh Allen can play in the weather. He played in Wyoming. Second of all, we live in it. Like, we live in it, and people are like, oh, that doesn't matter. When they get there, it doesn't matter. I'm like, it matters. Dude, yesterday we had that snowstorm. I saw a dude snow blowing his driveway in shorts and tennis shoes. First of all, that was yesterday. Today, and this is what made it hit my mind. This morning, I'm out there. We got an inch of light powder, so I didn't break the snow blower out. I just got the shovel out. I'm out there for 20 minutes just pushing snow around in this hoodie, no hat and no gloves. It's 18 degrees outside. And I'm just thinking to myself, don't tell me that home field advantage doesn't matter, especially with like weather and stuff like that. So sight lines, and I've talked to John Fina about that stuff too, sleeping in your own bed, like just like all your normal routines for the Bucs, that stuff is important. Like, the fact that was a legit home game for them was a big deal, a bigger deal than people are making it out to be, in my opinion. But I forgot the question. Did they get exposed? I don't think so. I think they just didn't get the Chiefs' best game, and I think the refs had a lot more to do with that game from a coverage standpoint, both defensively and offensively, than they did in the Bills game. And then at the end of the day, that pressure meant a lot. I mean, we've been watching the replays. It's been showing up on Twitter, like of Patrick Mahomes running all over God's green earth looking for some place to throw the football. That stuff matters because he was pressured and he had no place to put the ball. And that's what we saw happen to Josh Allen, right?
Right. I think in the sense exposed, I believe they were in this sense, and you touched on it. I think in the sense that Tampa Bay, whatever zone type of coverage, they implemented a game plan and they stuck to it. Buffalo, I don't think they had a true game plan in comparison to Tampa Bay. And I say that in respect to Travis Kelce, right? Yeah. He's lined up, hand in the dirt. You got to touch him a little bit. You got to touch him. You can't leave him free. We left him free a lot. Not once, not twice. 2 separate weeks. We played him in the regular season. We played him in the playoffs, obviously. He had field days against us both times. That can't happen. Tyreek Hill, he torches the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the regular season. Yep. Todd Bowles says that ain't happening again. That's the type of stuff that I think Leslie Frazier has to kind of embrace here in 2021. If we play a team once and something happens, we know we're a good team. We could potentially play that team again. Let's make the adjustments, where I didn't see adjustments made from when the Bills played Kansas City the first time to the second time.
The game plans were a little different, but there wasn't as much. I think the only challenge I would give to you to that, I'm not playing devil's advocate, Kelce had 130 yards receiving that in that Super Bowl, so he wasn't held in check. Like 130 yards. If you play fantasy football, it's like, yes, like 130 yards from the tight end. Even Travis Kelce is big. For me, the biggest problem I see with the Bills defense, and it happened in that Kansas City game, in both games, and it's a Leslie Frazier, Sean McDermott thing. It has become it. These guys don't tackle. They don't tackle guys. So you've got, whether it's every defensive back we have that's trying to like tackle the guy by the shoulders, trying to tackle freaking, name a guy, whether it's Travis Kelce or whoever, trying to grab him by the shoulder pads and bring him down, or it's Jerry Hughes, and I saw Epinesa do it and some other guys do it, trying to body check guys to the ground. It doesn't work. One of the biggest defensive differences between the Bucs and the Bills in those two games is the Buccaneers wrapped people up and tackled them, which the Bills did not do this whole season. Go back and I don't know how many games you ever recorded. Go back and watch some of them and watch how many times they like body check somebody to try to tackle them. It does not work.
Jordan Poyer, a lot of Jordan Poyer hitting high rather than hitting low. If Jordan Poyer hits anyone low, they will fall. Like I'm pretty confident in that. To his credit. And I would also say, like, in terms of comparing what Tampa Bay was able to do compared to what we really couldn't do, I mean, Tampa Bay has a perfect collection of coverage linebackers.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Devin White is wow. I think that was the unsung hero of that game, as well as Shaq Barrett. So I think pages do need to be taken out of what Tampa Bay was able to do. And in the sense that, was KC exposed? I think, to my Travis Kelce point, did they shut down Travis Kelce? No, but they were more physical with him than we were. Yes. But they did shut down Tyreek Hill. I mean, Tyreek Hill did not have the week that he had, against us or against Tampa Bay. And that's what I'm saying. Like, the adjustments, I think there's going to be a lot of film review between Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier, and I think they will figure it out. I'm confident in that. And I'm also confident that they will get this run game sorted out. I think that, more than anything, is probably the biggest issue with this Bills team right now, is that lack of a run game.
That and tackling. To me, there's not a lot of people talking about it, bro. Like, there's not. But go back to the Tennessee, I agree. Go back to the Tennessee game. So it should have started right there. So what happens? Josh Norman on a play that had a flag, so the play doesn't exist, but we still see it on Good Morning Football every day. Josh Norman gets completely like face checked by Derrick Henry. What is Josh Norman trying to do? He's trying to tackle his freaking shoulders.
That was
240-pound Derrick Henry. You're 5'8", 100 and nothing, and you're trying to tackle him by the shoulders. Of course, he's going to slap you off like you're a little kid. That was the moment they should have gone back to the practice field and been like, okay, today we're going to remember how to tackle all of them. We're all going to tackle. And if I see anybody hit the tackle dummy above the waist, you're running laps. But they didn't.
Right.
All season long, it was just garbage tackling. So, sorry, soapbox. To me, the story of that Kansas City game, and I don't know how often you listen to my show, and you don't have to. Was literally that game to me defensively for the Buffalo Bills was the run play late where it was an obvious running situation, and Tyreek Hill takes off like it's a pass play, and Trey falls on his face, jukes him out of his shoes. He falls on his face, and Tyreek Hill's making fun of him as he goes by him. That to me was the story of that football game. It's that was our defense that day. It was just was not great.
Adjustments have to be made.
Yes.
From this year to this upcoming season, last season, I guess you can say now, to this upcoming season, adjustments have to be made. And one of the players, the finale of the staying or going question is Matt Milano.
Ding, ding, ding.
Staying or going? Should the Bills re-sign Matt Milano? I want your take on this really bad because I know that you've been talking about the defense. And folks, check out the Overreaction Podcast. Joe Miller, the Buffalo Fanatics. Got a lot of friends over there at the Buffalo Fanatics. Joe Miller, Dave Tilton, Judge Mathis, Jay Spence, Ron Rico. I got a lot of buddies over there, so shout out to them. Yeah, definitely. What are your thoughts on Matt Milano staying or going?
So I want Matt Milano to stay. In my opinion, there's no way it's happening. The whole conversation from Brandon Beane about giving him, he's earned the right to go test free agency basically means clean out your locker, bro, because you're going to get offered a bunch of money. We're not going to be able to pay you. The question I have as it pertains to all of the free agent movement in 2021 that's coming up is you got to wonder where they're going to slot money wise, because there's only so much money to go around. The Bills, who were in great cap situation before COVID, are one of almost all the teams that have no money to spend right now. They got to make some serious moves, and you just got to wonder what agents are telling these players, hey, sign a 1-year deal for little money, to expect to get, or stay where you are, play one more year. I don't know what his agent's telling him. Do I want Matt Milano back? I would love to have Matt Milano back with a havoc wreaker on the defensive line. I would say this, in the current situation, the current formula, it's not really working. And I don't know two things. I don't know that the McDermott defense, as he had in Carolina, is predicated on having 2 lights out linebackers. He needs to have 1. Luke Kuechly was his guy. Edmonds, and this is where we get lost as Bills Mafia. Edmonds is a freaking kid. He is still a child. There are kids coming out of college older than Tremaine Edmonds, and he's been in the league 3 years. His best football's in front of him, and he's still progressing. He's made 2 Pro Bowls. You can argue whether or not you feel like he deserved to make those Pro Bowls, or if it was a popularity contest, which I'm probably more on the side of it's a popularity contest. But he is a guy that offensive coordinators do account for when he's on the field. They worry about and wonder where he is because he can hurt you. And at some point in time, it's going to slow down for him. The light bulbs are all going to come on, and he's going to be the next, I'm not saying Brian Urlacher, but he's going to be one of the next big linebackers, in my opinion. So the question is if he is a monster on the football field and you've got a havoc wreaker on the defensive line, do you need Matt Milano? That's the question. I don't have the answer to that. Do I like Matt Milano? Yes, we all love Matt. The girls really love Matt Milano. Do I want him on my team? Sure. Is he injury prone? No. He broke an ankle or broke his leg or whatever, and then he had this injury. That was it. He missed 2 games before the season. So he's not really injury prone. He's not made of glass. He got exposed a little bit. He, from a coverage, and that's the other thing too that we didn't talk about. And I'm talking a lot, Ryan, again. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Let it roll. You're good.
Matt Milano, arguably, we all know, if you're a Bills fan for 10 minutes and you pay attention to any content creators, we all know that from this season, we've learned this year that Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano basically play the same position. Their responsibilities are very much similar. Just one is calling the plays while the other one's not. And of the 2 of them, Matt Milano is the coverage linebacker. Even the NFL knows. People say it. He's one of the best coverage linebackers in the NFL. In that Chiefs game, every time Kelsey caught the football, Tremaine Edmonds was on him, which I was like, isn't that other guy our coverage linebacker? So I don't know what's going on there, to be honest with you. So I would like to have Matt Milano back. My guess is he's gone. for numbers reasons, I just don't know if the bugaboo in the whole thing is JJ Watt coming available. If you're asking me if I want JJ Watt or Matt Milano, give me JJ Watt. And it's like, but Joe, Matt Milano's so young. Yeah, but JJ Watt's got 3 years left in him, and he's gonna be a freaking train wreck for people. Like, they're gonna have a hard time with that defensive line all of a sudden. It's gonna be back to, I mean, if people that remember the Jim Schwartz wide 9 days with Mario and Jerry, like when Mario and Jerry were on that defensive line, they were impossible to stop. I mean, we beat freaking Aaron Rodgers with that crap football team, right?
Right. Like, I remember that game very well.
Right. I mean,
it was an awesome game.
Give me more of that, please. Like, and that's just going to make Tre'Davious White better. It's going to make everybody in the back end better, which means if it's Klein, who they started scheming properly and he kind of found a rhythm and found his groove, if it's somebody else that they bring in, you know, if they draft a guy, I don't know what the answer is. My guess is just like Milano, you can probably find, you know, a linebacker in this draft in the 3rd round or 4th round that can play and start right away. In my opinion, you're not going to find a whole lot of defensive backs, defensive linemen, you know, that are going to be, you know, impact players day one at number 30. I just, to me, you've got to figure that out. So running back, I think you wanted to talk draft, but yeah.
Oh, you're good.
So, so for me, my guess is Matt's going. The hard part is I love these guys. We love these. There's guys I don't love. Like I was on Pat Moran show and we were talking similar stuff, and I was like, I don't even know Vernon Butler's number. Like, you know what I mean? like that's how much of an impact he made this year. I don't know what number he wears. So there's guys I want to see go. Trent Murphy, I want to see go. Quentin Jefferson can be gone. Like, I don't need him around anymore. I'm still not a big fan of Levi Wallace. Like, I want to see Dane play football. There's guys that can go. Lee Smith, you know, I understand what they're trying to do. He can go. There's guys out there that can roll, but you know, for me, Milano's one of those guys that we love, right? He's just it's like Jerry Hughes. How do you have a conversation about whether or not you're cutting Jerry Hughes? We love Jerry Hughes. Like, why would we want Jerry Hughes to go away? Like, on WGR, they talk about like he's potentially a future Wall of Famer, and I'm like, well, I don't know if I go that far, but I do.
In terms of tenure and what he has done for the team, I'd be like, okay, but you know, production, that's another. You know, that it's like the Hall of Fame discussions. There's guys like, to me, okay, I think Terrell Owens, T.O., is onto something as far as the Hall of Fame process. Like, to me, I loved Calvin Johnson. I had him on my fantasy team the years that he had a 2,000 yards and everything. But his first ballot, he gets in. Guys like Reggie Wayne and Torrey Holt that had longer careers, put up just as good numbers, if not better, didn't. That's where things get a little bit interesting. Not to say that Calvin's not a Hall of Famer. Well, so
you look at when they retired.
First ballot is different.
When Andre Reed retired, he was still considered in his prime one of the greatest wide receivers that ever played. Then
he was third all time in yards when he retired.
5 years go by, 6 years go by, the game completely changes, and all of a sudden it's like, well, he wasn't that good. And it's like, excuse me? You know what I mean? Like, no, he was really good. Like, he was a 4th round draft pick who had longevity, played in 4 Super Bowls, like was part of one of the most prolific offenses in the league, like ever, that basically was the blueprint for everything that's going on now at that time with Peyton Manning and everything else. It's like, how can you say he wasn't that good? It's like
literally guys like Marvin Harrison and Holt.
Right.
Andre Reed's one of those guys too, you know, like, and one of the things that frustrated me to touch on that was, I watched Jim Kelly's Hall of Fame speech recently. If you guys haven't watched, if, you know, people watching this haven't watched it, I don't know, you know, if you have or haven't, but even if you have, watch it again. And it's like, he goes out there and says, Andre Reed, Thurman Thomas, soon to be Hall of Famers. And I'm thinking to myself, Thurman had to wait until like 2007.
Yeah,
Kelly was inducted in
2 years or 3 years, right? Yeah.
He had to wait till like 2007. And, you know, Andre Reed had to wait until like 2014?
It was the teens, yep.
I mean, that's just crazy to me. Like, and Bill's bias aside, that is just, and Jim Kelly was inducted in what, like 96?
Yeah, first ballot. Right?
First ballot?
First ballot, I think, yeah.
Crazy.
The best part about all those stories is Bruce Smith, the day after he retired, was signing footballs, you know, Hall of Fame 5 years later. Like, he knew he was going first ballot. Your argument has merit. Like, why is Calvin Johnson going this early, right? I mean, he was a part of a line.
I was shocked.
Yes,
I was shocked.
He's Megatron, but he's not Randy Moss. Like Randy Moss to me had a more prolific career than Calvin Johnson did. Like,
right.
But yeah, it's wide receivers are one of the, I remember when I was younger, you always heard, wide receivers should never go first ballot or even second ballot. And it's probably true. They shouldn't, because there's not that many of those guys that are Jerry Rice. Of them, Jerry Rice is one of the few that should go first, like first year eligible. How Steve Tasker isn't going into the Hall of Fame is a crime. Like there's a lot of those guys. And again, Homer Goggles or not, Steve is the best guy to ever play, in that.
Right.
And it was like, oh, Devin Hester. Well, Devin Hester didn't do what Steve Tasker did. Like Steve Tasker did punt returns and did score touchdowns, not like Devin did, but he
tackled.
And he tackled, right. He did the dirty work. He did the hard stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But no, we're a little off topic, but I'm with you.
Yeah. I got to throw that out there though. You have the show planned, but then there's other stuff that comes up and it's like, you have to address it.
Always.
Yeah, you just have to. But no, to your point about Matt Milano, to revert back, I think that, I saw regression from Matt Milano, and I can't put my finger on what it was or why it happened. But I did see, early in the season, he's not really playing that well. And then it comes out, he's hurt.
Yeah.
And how hurt was he? Did that injury that he had linger? And then he re-injured himself. And it was just a very weird year for Matt Milano. I would like to see him get another chance to come back this season in Buffalo healthy. The question is, to your point, do these agents say, take a 1-year deal, take a short-term deal, maybe stay where you, stick with what you know and stay here for a season and then test the market when we're out of this crazy stuff. And that's what we have seen in baseball. It's what we have seen in hockey. There were players on the Sabres that many thought would be gone, but they re-signed for just this shortened season. Right. One of them being Taylor Hall coming to Buffalo. But I definitely think this is going to be an unprecedented offseason, just like this last year has been. And Joe, I want to get your thoughts before we wrap it up.
Sure.
Your thoughts on the 2020 season for you. What did this 2020 Buffalo season mean for you, this Bills season mean for you during this pandemic as far as entertainment value? How much of a blessing was this season, despite the bitter taste, the bitter pill that we had to swallow against Kansas City? How fulfilling was this season for you, not just as a content creator, but first and foremost, we're fans that create content too. There's that end of it too. We have a passion for this team. What were your thoughts, on this season, just overall for you?
Well, I would tell you first that's not completely accurate. There's a lot of content creators out there that their content creation trumps their fanhood, and they would even probably tell you that they're not too much of fans anymore. And I don't mean necessarily the hobbyists. That was just a conversation that I had with some guys, and I was like, how are you guys feeling about this? I'm like, well, the job kind of comes first. I'm like, oh, I'm out. If that's the case, like I'm a fan like that. I'm a fan first. The other stuff comes later. But my show is predicated on that. I mean, my show is about the overreaction. As much as I don't overreact, my show is about bringing the emotion from the couch, like how we felt on the couch on Sunday or whenever the game is played. Me bringing that back to you the next morning. So this season for me was everything that I needed on multiple levels, outside of being a content creator, outside of just giving me something to talk about. Wins are far more fun to talk about, even though it seems like we have far more material when we have losses, right? So when the Bills lose, it's easier to come up with material because you're talking about all the stuff that went wrong versus when they win, because then it's like everything was great. You know what I mean? It's just different. It's a different feeling as the creator. For me, though, the biggest thing for me this season, in a year where we couldn't go to the game, right? And I'm a season ticket holder. And one of the things for me was like, before that Colts game, the playoff game, and that I got to go to, which was great. There was a great deal of like, is this going to be one of the greatest Bills teams ever? Like at that point in time, it's like, we're thinking like this team is like ready for a Super Bowl. They could go like to who knows if they're going to win. And like, they're never going to have met us. They're never going to have met Bills Mafia, and we're never going to have met them. Like we're never going to meet. So there was a lot of like inside of all those types of things. And we finally got to go. But for me, and I don't, so I'm a girl dad. I have two daughters. One's 14, one's 11. And my 14-year-old Yeah, my 14-year-old is a huge Bills fan. Huge, like it's amazing over the last, like she just consumes football. She was in 2 fantasy football leagues. Her first one's this year. She won them both. How about that?
My God, that's awesome.
And like, I remember last year during the Texans game, the playoff game, like we're sitting on the couch, I'm having a Super Bowl party and people are over and like people are asking questions about what just happened and why. And my then 13-year-old is telling them what the rule is and why it was a penalty or why something happened or whatever.
I would be so proud.
Right, dude. So like for me this year, like the greatest takeaway for me this year inside of a team that played 19 football games, won 15 of them, right? So holy crap already. But just to live this season through my daughter's eyes and see her like just passion and fire and fervor, like just develop even more because she's been a fan like her dad and because of her dad of a shitty football team, right? I mean, for lack of a better term, for most of her life. And now all of a sudden it's like this, holy crap, dad, like these guys are really good. And I'm like, holy crap, babe, you're right. So I watched, that was probably the best part about the pandemic for me was I got to sit on the couch with my daughter, my 14-year-old, other than the Colts game. And she cried because I wasn't going to, like, she's like, who's going to watch the game with me? And I'm like, well, you're going to have to watch the game by yourself, just like you did last year, because I went to the games last year. And she was not happy about that. But like, I got to watch, of the 15 wins, I got to watch 14 of them with her. And that to me is the greatest takeaway that I have of the season. And I don't mean to get mushy or weird, but it's just like,
no, not at all. I loved it. That's awesome.
Just to see her and see like what the Bills mean to her and how much she loves Josh Allen and how much she loves the players. And, just to see her react to me like, cause sometimes she'd laugh at me and other times, like she called me out. It was the Chiefs game. And I think I put this on Twitter. Maybe not. I said it somewhere.
I think you did. Yeah.
It was the freaking, the Edwards-Helaire touchdown that put them up 21-9. And I was like, that might be the game. And she got angry at me. Like,
she laid into you.
Yeah, you call yourself a fan. Blah. I was like, I did not say the game is over. I said it might be over. Like,
yeah, she didn't want to hear it though.
she's like, you need to leave the room. Get out of here with that kind of an like she was all over me. So for me, the best takeaway of all the great stuff that happened this year, and it even amounts to more. So this is the first time that you and I have connected, all the connections that I've made this year. Because last year was when I started my podcast, October of 2019. I didn't know Jay Spence really. I mean, I kind of knew him. We were kind of friends, but not like we are now. I didn't know Bruce Nolan. I didn't know Greg Thompson. I didn't know Tilt and Judge and Rico and Pierre and all these guys. Like, just to see the connection and the rally in the content creators and the bill and just the mafia and the interaction and all that stuff. Like, there's been so much good. The greatest takeaway for me in all of it was just the connection with my daughter and watching her love for the football team. It was me in the 90s. I'm 47 years old. The Bills got good in 1989, 1988 when I was 16 years old. And like, I was just watching it happen to her. I was watching her fall in love with the team that I fell in love with. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
For me, that was so beautifully said because I couldn't agree more on my end. Like, once the season was over, I go on my YouTube channel just to kind of look at it, and I scroll down and I see all these guys and girls that I've had on the show. I'm like, wow, I met a lot of really cool people in the process. Although virtually, I still got a chance to actually meet them and talk to them and, ask them questions. And it was a weird year, but it was a weird year in that sense, but it was a huge opportunity for like self-reflection and self growth and everything like that. And I'm not going to lie to you, there were a few games where, the 49ers game, the Pittsburgh game, the Indy game, I'd watch these games and think, man, my grandpa was the guy that got me into this team. He's no longer with us. And I think to myself, man, what would he be thinking? I'd get emotional prior to going on the post-game show. I'd be like, I got to gather myself here. It was really, it was an emotional experience for me this year. But it was beautiful, to be honest. I think that's what makes football so special. So, Joe, I really appreciate you hopping on the show. I look forward to having you on again.
Yeah, dude.
Keep up the great work with your podcast. I greatly enjoy it. And, of course, tell all the guys, at Buffalo Fanatics that I said hello. And
absolutely
look forward to seeing you in the future. Maybe we can meet up and grab some wings and beer once this is all over.
Bills game. Let's do it.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
No, dude, it's always a pleasure. I appreciate you having me on. And yeah, dude. So I've actually been on a break, and I'm coming off break March 1st. So my show returns March 1. I don't know what's going on with the hotline. I have been in contact with John Fina, and he wants to keep going. So that'll happen maybe a little more frequently, but we'll see what happens. So it's a new year. I needed a couple weeks away. Like, I got more out of this year than I expected. I expected to do a podcast. I ended up with a podcast, a YouTube show, the John Fina show. Like, I got invited on a ton of shows. Like, it was a whirlwind, and I was like, I'm tapped out. Like, I need a break.
Yeah, I needed to kind of recuperate mentally and kind of just take it in and then come back. So this is the first show I've done with a Bills guest in quite some time.
Nice.
Content creator as yourself. So greatly appreciate you hopping on, Joe, and I look forward to talking to you again. As you said, hopefully I can see you, whether it's at the training camp or a Bills game. Man, it can't come soon enough. I miss football already. Bills football in particular.
I will if it's in St. John Fisher. If there's camp and fans, McKenna and I will be there. So I'll hit you up.
Awesome. Sounds good, buddy. Take care, Joe. That was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, leave a review, Spotify, all that stuff. Follow Joe at Joe Miller Wired, and take care. Go Bills.
Go Bills.